Fire exploded through the village the moment a deadly native doctor used dark juju to snatch a pastor's wife, triggering a horrifying spiritual war that no one in the community was prepared for. Welcome to Royal Beat Tales. If you are just seeing us for the first time, please subscribe, like, and comment for more unique stories. Once upon a time, in a quiet village in Nigeria, there lived a kind pastor named Michael and his loving wife Akema. Pastor Michael had come to this village to spread goodness and build a small church made of mud bricks and a tin roof. The villagers welcomed him warmly. They often saw Pastor Michael and Akema walking hand in hand to the market or working together in their little garden, smiling and happy. Before Pastor Michael arrived, Ikema had another suitor named Ojenemuo. Ojenemuo was a native doctor, a man who used dark magic and charms. In the past, he had hoped to marry Ikema, and many thought they would marry. But Ojenemuo left the village for a time to learn more magic, and during that time, Ikema moved on. She met Pastor Michael, who was gentle and kind, very different from Ojenemuo. Everyone in the village knew Ojenemuo's name. Some spoke it in whispers because they feared his powers. He had a small shrine in the forest where he performed rituals with carved masks, bones, and clay pots filled with strange herbs. When Ojenemuo finally returned to the village, he was shocked to discover that Ikema had married the new pastor. One evening, as the sun set in golden hues over the tall palm trees, Ojenemuo spotted Pastor Michael and Ikema walking home from church. He watched them from behind a mango tree, anger burning in his eyes. The woman he once wanted for himself was now the wife of a pastor, a man of God. Ojenemuo clenched his fists and decided it was time to confront Ikema and take back what he believed was his. In the gathering dusk, a cold wind began to blow, and an owl hooted from a rooftop, as if sensing the evil that was coming. The very next day, Ikema walked down a narrow dirt path to fetch water from the village stream. The air was warm, and the crickets were chirping softly in the bushes. Suddenly, a shadow fell across her path. Stepping out from behind a bamboo fence was Ojenemuo, holding a carved walking stick decorated with red cloth and cowrie shells. Ikema's heart skipped a beat when she saw her old suitor. She had hoped never to meet him again. "Ojenemuo," she said in a careful voice, clutching her water pot. "Good afternoon." Her voice trembled slightly, but she tried to stay calm. Ojenemuo gave a thin smile. "Ikema, so we meet again," he said quietly. His eyes studied her from head to toe. "I see you are now a married woman." He spat the word married bitterly, and Ikema saw his lips curl in anger. "You didn't wait for me. You chose a pastor over me who has known you since you were a girl." Ikema took a step back, remembering to keep a safe distance. "I am married now, and I am happy," she replied, trying to sound brave. "My husband is a good man. Please, let me pass." But Ojenemuo didn't move aside. Instead, he leaned closer. Ikema could smell the strong scent of herbs and smoke on his clothes. "Do you remember our time together?" he whispered, voice low and cold. "You were supposed to be mine, Ikema. How can you give yourself to that pastor? You belong with me." Ikema felt courage fill her heart. She lifted her chin and looked Ojenemuo right in the eyes. "No," she said firmly. "I belong with my husband. I follow the path of light now, and darkness and light have nothing in common. You and I have nothing in common anymore." Ojenemuo's eyes flashed with anger at her words. Birds suddenly scattered from a nearby tree, as if frightened. He gripped his walking stick tighter until his knuckles turned white. For a moment it seemed like he might strike Ikema or do something terrible. Ikema's hands shook, but she stood firm, silently praying for safety. Finally, Ojenemuo stepped aside and let her pass. But as she went by, he hissed, You will regret this if I cannot have you. No one will. His words followed Ikema as she hurried away, heart pounding. She didn't look back, even as tears of fear gathered in her eyes. Above, dark clouds gathered where the sun had been shining moments before, and the wind began to howl through the village, as if warning of the storm to come. A few days later, Pastor Michael returned home from visiting a sick church member in a nearby village. He pushed open the wooden door of his small house and called out, "Ikema, I'm back." But the house was quiet. Usually, Ikema would come out singing or rush to hug him, but this time there was only silence. Pastor Michael's smile faded. Something felt wrong. He walked into their bedroom and found that Ikema's clothes were gone from the wooden trunk at the foot of the bed. Her favorite yellow dress and her blue headscarf were missing. The pastor's heart began to race. He checked the kitchen area. Her cooking pots were not on the fire, and the mat she usually sat on was rolled up. It was as if she had packed up and left. Panicked, Pastor Michael ran outside and saw their neighbor, Mama Ugo, sweeping dry leaves in her yard. "Mama Ugo, please, have you seen my wife, Ikema?" he asked urgently. The old woman looked up with worry in her eyes. "Ah, Pastor," she said, "I saw Ikema earlier today. She left with Ohinamuo." Pastor Michael felt a chill of fear run through him. "Ohinamuo? The native doctor?" he exclaimed in disbelief. Ikema hated darkness. She would never go with him by her own free will. Mama Ugo nodded nervously. "Yes, I saw them walking toward the forest. She was carrying a bundle on her head. I called out to her, but she did not answer. She looked strange, like she was sleepwalking." The old woman lowered her voice to a whisper. "I think he has done something to her, Pastor. Some juju magic." Pastor Michael's hands trembled as he realized his worst fear. Ojinamo must have used a charm or a spell on Ikema to make her follow him. The pastor's eyes filled with tears as he imagined his dear wife under an evil spell. But he quickly wiped the tears away. He would not give up on her. As dusk fell, Pastor Michael grabbed his lantern and his Bible. His heart was pounding, but he would not turn back. He knew where Ojinamuo lived, deep in the forest at the shrine. "I will get my wife back," he said in a firm voice to himself. The crickets and frogs had begun their nightly song as he started down the narrow path into the woods. The trees stood tall and dark on either side. Pastor Michael's legs felt like jelly, but he kept moving. With every step, he whispered a prayer under his breath. He had no idea what horrors might await him at Ojinemuo's shrine, but love and faith pushed him onward into the darkness. It was late at night when Pastor Michael finally reached Ojinemuo's shrine deep in the forest. In the clearing, a small mud and bamboo hut stood surrounded by carved wooden masks and animal skulls on posts. The air smelled of burning herbs. The pastor's heart pounded as he raised his lantern. "Ikema," he called, voice quivering. To his relief, Ikema stepped out of the hut. But she looked strange. Her face was blank and her eyes were dull, as if she were sleepwalking. She wore a necklace of charms and red and white beads on her wrists that he had never seen. "Ikema, I'm here to take you home," he said gently. Reaching out, Ikema did not move or speak. A deep laugh echoed behind her. Ojinamuo emerged from the shadows with white chalk marks on his face and a tall staff in hand. In the moonlight, his eyes looked red. "She's not going anywhere with you," he growled. "Ikema belongs to me now." A cold chill went down the pastor's spine, but he stepped forward and shouted, "Let my wife go. You used your dark magic on her. Have you no shame?" "She was mine before she was yours. By the spirits, she will be mine again," Ojinamuo said angrily. He waved a clay pot and chanted strange words. At once, a wild wind rose up and snuffed out the pastor's lantern. Darkness swallowed the clearing except for the weak moonlight. The pastor gasped as the trees rustled without a storm. He fumbled to open his Bible, but before he could speak, something moved by his feet. A black snake slithered past, its eyes gleaming. He stumbled back in fright. Ojinamuo laughed loudly, and to the pastor's horror, Ekema joined in with a hollow, puppet-like laugh. Hearing his beloved wife make that lifeless sound broke Pastor Michael's heart. Terror wrapped around the pastor. He knew he could not fight Ojinamuo's dark powers alone. He turned and ran. Branches whipped his arms and thorns tore his clothes as he fled through the forest. Behind him, Ojinamuo's laughter echoed, and the native doctor shouted, "Run, Pastor, run! You cannot save her from me." Pastor Michael did not stop until he burst out of the forest and back into the village, frightened and heartbroken. Pastor Michael did not stop running until he reached his house and bolted the door. That night he fell to his knees and prayed with all his might, tears in his eyes. He prayed for Ekema's safety and for strength to fight the darkness. Eventually he was very tired, and he fell into a troubled sleep on his mat. As soon as he slept, the nightmares began. He dreamed of chasing Ekema through a fog, only for Ojinamuo to appear laughing and blocking his way. In another dream, Ekema turned into a fierce wild cat that clawed at him. Each time these scary dreams jolted him awake, the pastor would gasp for air and then begin to pray. He refused to let fear win. He remembered that God was with him, even in the darkest valley. After every nightmare, Pastor Michael lit a candle and prayed harder, asking God to protect him and save his wife. Around midnight, a sudden chill filled the room. The flame of his candle wobbled. Pastor Michael felt he was not alone. Slowly, he looked up, and there, at the foot of his bed, stood Ojinamuo. The native doctor looked like a dark shadow with glowing eyes and a cruel smile. The pastor's hands shook, but he clutched his Bible to his chest. Ojinamuo spoke in a quiet, cold voice. "This is your last chance, Pastor," he hissed. "Leave this village and never come back. If you go now, I won't harm you, but if you stay, you will not live to see the next full moon." Fear stabbed at Pastor Michael's heart, but he also felt his faith giving him strength. He stood up straight and answered firmly, "I will not leave. This village belongs to God, not to you. Ekema is my wife, not yours, and I will never stop fighting for her." At those words, Ojinamuo's smile twisted into a frown. He raised his hand as if to strike. Suddenly, the candle blew out and the room went completely dark. The pastor felt an evil force press on him, and a hiss sounded by his ear. But he squeezed his eyes shut and began praying loudly. He called on God to protect him, his voice shaking, but he did not stop praying. All at once, the evil spirit disappeared. Pastor Michael opened his eyes and saw only pale moonlight shining through the window. Ojinamuo was gone. The pastor was trembling from head to toe, but he was grateful to be alive. He did not run away as the native doctor demanded. Instead, he lit the candle again with shaky hands and knelt on the floor to pray until the rooster crowed at dawn. He begged God for deliverance and for strength, refusing to surrender to the native doctor's threats. Morning light brought a new day, and Sunday arrived, the day of worship. Pastor Michael was tired from the night of nightmares and prayer, but he still went to lead the church service as always. He rang the small iron bell by the church to call the villagers to worship one by one. They came, dressed in their best, carrying their Bibles. They greeted Pastor Michael kindly, though some noticed the dark circles under his eyes and his shaky smile. The wooden pews creaked as people sat. Chickens wandered outside, pecking at the dirt as the service began. Pastor Michael tried to focus on his sermon about faith overcoming fear. He spoke about the courage of David against Goliath, and how even a small light can chase away great darkness. The villagers listened carefully, nodding. They respected Pastor Michael and felt sad that Ekema was still missing. Whispers had spread that the native doctor took her, and fear hung over the villagers like a dark cloud. Halfway through the sermon, as Pastor Michael wiped sweat from his brow, the door of the church creaked open. A tall figure slipped in silently and sat on the back bench. Pastor Michael's heart nearly stopped. It was Ojenamuo. The native doctor had come into the church. He wore a black robe and had his face painted with white chalk symbols. But something was strange. None of the other church members reacted to Ojenamuo at all. They continued listening to the sermon, eyes forward, as if they saw nothing. Only Pastor Michael could see the native doctor sitting there with a wicked grin. Ojenamuo lifted a finger to his lips as if to hush the pastor, then pointed that finger at Pastor Michael like a warning. The pastor's mouth went dry. His hands holding the Bible began to shake. Pastor Michael lost his place in his sermon notes. He watched in dread as Ojenamuo stood up from the back bench and started walking slowly down the aisle, closer and closer. To Pastor Michael, each footstep echoed on the wooden floor, but no one else heard a thing. No one else saw anything. The native doctor was invisible to everyone except Pastor Michael. Ojenamuo came right up to the front row, looming just a few feet away with a mocking look in his eyes. Pastor Michael's heart pounded. He couldn't stay silent. Suddenly he shouted, "The Lord rebuke you, evil spirit!" His cry rang out in the small church. Everyone jumped in surprise and looked around, seeing nothing. Murmurs of confusion spread. The people wondered if their pastor was all right. Ojenamuo smirked and moved even closer, trying to scare the pastor in front of everyone. Pastor Michael knew he had to do something fast. He shut his eyes and began to sing a hymn loudly. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Though puzzled, the villagers in the church slowly joined their pastor in the song. Their voices grew stronger, filling the church with a powerful melody. As they sang, Ojenamuo covered his ears, frowning in pain. With one last furious glare, the native doctor disappeared from the church as suddenly as he had come. All at once, the heavy feeling in the air lifted. Pastor Michael opened his eyes and let out a breath of relief. The villagers, still confused, finished the service with a prayer. They sensed something strange had happened. After church, whispers spread through the village that Ojenamuo's evil spirit had tried to attack the pastor during worship. Everyone was afraid because they knew how dangerous Ojenamuo could be. That night, families locked their doors tight, and parents comforted their children, praying that God would protect their village from the angry native doctor. A few days later, a heavy tension still hung over the village. Everyone was afraid of what Ojenamuo might do next, but something happened that no one expected. That afternoon, an old farmer named Papa Ifeanyi was burning dry grass on his farm to prepare for planting season. The day was hot and the wind was strong. Before he knew it, the flames he set grew large and spread beyond his field. The fire rushed toward the forest, crackling through the bushes. Papa Ifeanyi dropped his tool in fear as he realized the fire was heading straight for Ojenamuo's shrine hidden among the trees. Within minutes, thick black smoke rose from the forest. The dry palm leaves and wooden hut of the shrine caught fire quickly. Villagers saw the smoke and heard a loud crackling noise. Ojenamuo's sacred shrine was burning to the ground. When Ojenamuo saw his shrine on fire, he screamed in rage. He tried to stop the flames with his magic, but nothing worked. Finally, he fled into the forest as everything he treasured turned to ash. At that same moment, Akema suddenly came to her senses at Ojenamuo's hut. It was as if a dark fog lifted from her mind. Realizing she was free from the spell, she immediately jumped up and ran toward the village as fast as she could. Pastor Michael and the villagers saw someone running down the path from the forest. It was Akema. The pastor's heart leaped. He ran to her, and she fell into his arms, sobbing with relief. Pastor Michael wept for joy and thanked God over and over that his wife was finally free. The whole village rejoiced to see Ikema back. People clapped, laughed, and praised God that the evil spell was finally broken. Papa Ifeanyi was amazed that his little farm fire had chased away such a great evil. He wiped his forehead and joked, "I only wanted to burn weeds, but my small fire drove away a big darkness." Everyone laughed with relief and thanked God for this unexpected miracle. As for Ojinam Muo, he was never seen in the village again. With his shrine gone, his power was gone. Some say he wandered far away in shame, and others whisper that the spirits punished him for his wicked deeds. Either way, the dark cloud over the village was gone. That night, Pastor Michael and Ikema knelt together to thank God for saving them. The villagers slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The battle was over, and good had won. Ikema's words to Ojinamuo proved true. Darkness and light have nothing in common, and in the end the light chased away the darkness. The tale of the native doctor who snatched a pastor's wife, and how faith and love brought her back, was told for years in the village. Everyone learned that no matter how scary evil seems, goodness and truth will always win in the end. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment for more unique stories.